from the Mercy One studio.
Support for Faith on Trial and Iowa Catholic Radio provided in part by Imogene Ingredients.
Our freedom of conscience and religion is being challenged by laws and regulations imposed by secular society. It's time to hear from the top Christian litigators in the nation who have come forward to tell us the truth and help us defend our faith.
Hear ye, hear ye. All rise. Faith on Trial with Defender of the Faith, Deacon Mike Mano, is in session.
And good Thursday morning from the Mercy One Studios in West Des Moines. I'm Deacon Mike Mano, here along with Gina Knoll. How are you, Gina?
Good morning, Deacon Mike. I'm doing well, yes.
Exploding toothpaste this morning.
I almost missed the show this morning. I went to brush my teeth, and I'm never doing that again for you guys. Because I grabbed a new tube of toothpaste, and it blew up from the bottom end. And it wasn't just toothpaste. It was gooey, slimy. It was quite the mess. I almost didn't make it here.
Well, I'm glad you did.
Cleaning that up.
I'm glad you did.
Yes. Hey, I wanted to ask you about the, if you'd heard about Notre Dame. You know, we often talk about what poor choices they make sometimes in bringing leaders to their community for our students on that Catholic campus to learn from. But apparently there was some backlash. They were planning on having President Biden attend as a commencement speaker this last week. 4,400 campus students signed a petition saying, no way, his abortion views are not something this community agrees with, and he would be a poor example of leadership at our commencement.
Well, I'm glad the students are taking that position.
Right, and I know that we have on the show really pointed out some discrepancies.
We've criticized Notre Dame before for having Obama and for doing some other things.
That are definite direct conflict with the tenets of the Catholic Church. So I was glad to see that.
And it's interesting that this is coming up just before the spring assembly of the USCCB, which we're going to be talking to Dr. Matthew Bunson about, and how the bishops are going to handle this issue, because this is a kind of thorny issue.
Well, that's why I bring it up, because I know we're going to discuss it today kind of in a different realm, but it's nice to see our Catholic schools taking a stand, protecting the faith and sharing the truth.
It's nice to know that maybe Notre Dame is shaking some of its wokeness.
Yeah. Yes. Or at least the students are speaking out, and that says a lot for our up-and-coming leaders in this country.
Yeah, that gives me some faith that we're looking here at students that are making these decisions and signing these petitions, because they are recognizing a truth that a lot of times the people that run Notre Dame and a number of other people that help run the church are missing, or they're trying to find compromise with, or in the name trying to avoid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it was really, his the church's teachings on abortion, marriage, sex, and gender. Biden's views are hostile to those views. So
I
heard that if you want to look it up, I haven't listened to the entire thing yet. I've heard clips, but the gentleman who gave the commencement speech was a graduate who apparently has donated many scholarships to students at the university and gave just a phenomenal commencement address about faith, family, and leadership. So I'm hoping to listen to that entire commencement speech.
Commencement addresses must be very difficult to give, because the people that are there, that are in the audience, are so busy with so many other things and celebrations at the same time that you wonder how much they remember of what this man said or woman said by the next day.
I don't remember I don't even know who gave the commencement speech at my graduation. So that's terrible.
All I remember is I was sitting there at Creighton, knowing that I was graduating by the skin of my teeth and that I was lowering the standards for everybody as I was going to walk across that stage in a few minutes. Yeah.
Well, you've you've grown in your knowledge and education because you are full of information and history that is helpful to all of us.
Thank you, because a lot of people say I'm full of something else.
Well, you have a little bit of that. I will agree with those other people. But your homilies and your writings for the Wanderer are just amazing pieces of information that help us all grow. So,
thank you. I certainly appreciate it.
You might have had a slow start, but you really came around.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's what's been done for me by the radio station.
Well, I think there's a little Holy Spirit involved, maybe.
Maybe so. Real quick, before we get to our break, Zachary King last week at St. Augustine's, who was the former Satanist who spoke.
Yes.
Your take on that?
Yes, I went to see him speak. I was surprised at the attendance. That church. I haven't seen that church that packed since 2019, I think. There were a lot of people there.
That's because we mentioned it on the radio,
Well, maybe. There was good promotion. And who isn't intrigued by the power of Satan? You know, I think if somebody came to speak about their encounter with Christ, it would be twice the size of the attendance. But he was... I know all that he talked about, I already knew. Mm-hmm. It was just grim to hear him talk about how Satan has such a hold on so much of our society from his personal experience. Yes. And the intrigue, I mean, he did a very good job of talking about how easy it is to be tricked by Satan, his lies and his deceit and betrayal then in the end. And now his witness is just beautiful. And I pray for Zachary because Satan doesn't want him to share this, and
no, he doesn't.
It's obvious that he's tortured by continuing to share his witness and his revelations from Christ.
It was very interesting. It's on the Facebook for St. Augustine.
Oh, a replay?
It's up there, and we put it on our blog, Faith on Trial Radio. The problem with it, if you go there, is whoever started the camera started about 20 minutes early, so you got to slide over about 20 minutes and you get the beginning of it. It's about a 2-hour program, but it would certainly be interesting to listen to.
Yeah.
And do you have a prayer to open us up with?
I do. Speaking of Satan, let's pray for peace today from Pope Benedict. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. God of peace, bring your peace to our violent world. Peace in the hearts of all men and women, and peace among the nations of this earth. Turn to your way of love those whose hearts and minds are consumed with hatred. Strengthen us in hope and give us the wisdom and courage to work tirelessly for a world where true peace and love reign among nations and in the hearts of all. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Gina. We're going to take a few minutes break right now. When we come back, we're going to have Dr. Matthew Bunson, Executive Editor of EWTN News, with us. You're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and John Leonetti in the Morning is provided by Blessman International. Blessman International partners with volunteers and donors to provide sustainable programs for children in South Africa by leading 12-day all-inclusive experiences, sharing the heart of Christ with vulnerable children in South Africa. Teams are forming to do something significant in an African child's life. Learn more at blessmaninternational.org. Thank you to Blessman International for their support of Iowa Catholic Radio.
Thank you, Big Red Q Quick Print, for underwriting the sports report. Family owned and operated since 1980, Big Red Q Quick Print is a full-service print shop ready to help you with all your printing needs with speed and accuracy. Forms, manuals, brochures, letterhead, envelopes, business cards, custom invitations, design, and bindery. Big Red Q Quick Print, located across from Merle Hay Mall. Online at bigredq-desmoines.com. Big Red Q Quick Print. We make printing easy.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and John Leonetti in the Morning provided by Bell Construction.
Bell Construction is a roofing company. They specialize in residential re-roofs, like commercial jobs, and have the experience to meet all of your roofing needs with personal service. With Bell Construction, the owner will come to your home or place of business in person to inspect and ensure the quality of work that you deserve. They pride themselves in working with you on a personal basis and making sure you are satisfied. Bell Construction, 515-963-4494. Bell Construction.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and the Uncommon Good provided by Mercy College of Health Sciences, where you can chart your course for more.
This is Bo Bonner.
And I'm Dr. Bud Marr from the Uncommon Good.
Mercy College provides unparalleled clinical rotations, hands-on learning, accelerated education, and flexible schedules. Since 1899, Mercy College has been transforming students into healthcare professionals. Guided by Catholic values, our faculty put classroom theory into practice. Students are prepared for roles in service and leadership throughout their own careers.
Learn more at mchs.edu.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Dowling Catholic Sports is provided in part by Ashworth Vision Clinic. With 2 licensed optometrists, Barbara Sheets, a Dowling graduate, and Dr. Craig Harper, the Ashworth Vision Clinic team provides complete eye exams, contact lenses, glasses, glaucoma testing, and pre- and post-operative care. Ashworth Vision Clinic is located at 60th and Ashworth in West Des Moines. 515-440-4610 or online, ashworthvision.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Faith on Trial provided by Paul Martin and Paul Mitchell, owners of Imogene Ingredients. Imogene Ingredients supply specialized feed ingredients for livestock and pet diets to improve maternal and young animal health in both conventional and organic production.
And we're back. You're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio. We're joined now by Dr. Matthew Bunson, who's executive editor of EWTN News. Dr. Bunson, thank you for joining us again today.
Good morning. It's very good to be with you.
And it's always a pleasure to have you. You've been here several times, and I hope we've always treated you well. We must have, or you wouldn't come back, right?
Of course.
This is a good time to have you on, I think, because as you are aware, this June, in about 2.5 weeks or so, the Spring Assembly of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops is meeting. And I think there are some things that they're going to be talking about or maybe not talking about that you might be aware of. And I thought we'd start with the pending question of the day. How are they going to react to the issue of communion for pro-abortion politicians?
Yes, well, this is a question that the bishops have been grappling with for some decades, actually. We can go all the way back to 1984, and the candidacy of Geraldine Ferraro as vice president of the United States, remember, with Walter Mondale.
Right.
And she was a very public Catholic and also a very public pro-abortion politician and Catholic, and so there was uproar then. We've been looking at the candidates like Mario Cuomo, who was the governor of New York, John Kerry, of course, who ran in 2004 for president on the Democratic ticket. And back in 2004, that was significant because that really became a major controversy in which even then Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger weighed in with a memo. So this is nothing especially new. What is new, however, is the fact that we do have the second self-professed Catholic sitting as president in the White House. And this has raised, really, since the candidacy of Joe Biden, it became clear that he was going to be the Democratic nominee, that the question of his pro-abortion stand, but also his positions on a number of other issues, including transgenderism, religious liberty issues, really is a source of grave concern to a number of bishops, and how we deal with it brings us to this present moment.
Now, it seems to me that recently there have been a couple of American cardinals that have raised some questions about whether this should come up. There's been a clarification from the Vatican, which I'm not sure clarifies very much, but maybe you have a better read on that than I do.
Well, the individuals that you're talking about in particular are Cardinal Blaise Cupich of Chicago, Cardinal Joseph Tobin of Newark, and a number of other bishops who are leery of having a conversation at the Bishops' Conference on this very topic. There has been a lot of back and forth, and in the face of that, very public, as I said, in the face of that, the prefect for the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith, Cardinal Luis Ladaria, sent a letter some weeks ago in which he asked the bishops to come together to try to find unanimity on this issue at a time when, as you note, the bishops seem to be poised to have a very thorough discussion, potentially even issue a statement on what they refer to as Eucharistic coherence. And the letter from Cardinal Ladaria has been interpreted by some as sort of putting a brake on any discussions, but a careful reading of that letter, I would argue, and I think many, many bishops across the United States have the same position, is providing a framework or a guideline for having that discussion, not telling them to refrain from having it. So here we are with that letter in hand, and now a new letter coming out from 67 bishops, including several cardinals, including the two I just mentioned, as well as Cardinal Wilton Gregory of Washington, D.C., asking that nothing be done on this issue until the bishops at least meet in November. So this is going to be a very interesting couple of weeks as the bishops grapple with this. And unfortunately, we are now in a position where the exact opposite of what Cardinal Ladaria was hoping would happen is unfolding.
Yeah. Now, Archbishop Gomez, president.
Yes.
What is his position? It seems to me he's one of the ones that was trying to raise the issue.
Well, Archbishop Gomez, as the president of the USCCB, as well as, of course, the Archbishop of Los Angeles, but in his role as president has an obligation. It's twofold. One is to listen to his brother bishops, to try to bring that unity among the bishops to deal with the most important crises of our time. But the other is, as he has done really from the time of the election of Joe Biden last November, and especially after his inauguration, is to find ways to work with this administration as the bishops do with any administration. But this has a unique set of circumstances, as he himself noted, that we have a sitting president who is Catholic, but again, who holds positions that are diametrically and very publicly opposed to the teachings of the Church. So his responsibility, and I think he's very conscious of it, and is trying to work fairly and listening to his brother bishops on this, but they need to do something in terms of helping Catholics to understand the position of the Church on her teachings, and also for the very soul of Joe Biden.
And the soul of all Catholics. Isn't that the bottom line here? I'm often frustrated by the looking from the outside in. It seems like the leadership of the bishops is looking to have a cordial relationship with the United States government, more importantly, than setting an example for the flock. Am I wrong in that observation?
No. Well, I think every administration is going to have areas of agreement and disagreement with the bishops. Donald Trump, who I think we can safely say was the most committed pro-life president we've had in many, many decades, certainly possibly some would argue in American history, issued policies and other things that were very favorable to the pro-life cause, and that many of those positions the bishops supported. At the same time, President Trump had policies that, from a Catholic standpoint, we would disagree with.
Sure.
For example, the death penalty and immigration. Immigration, of course, is a prudential judgment, as is the death penalty. Abortion is, as the bishops themselves said, the preeminent issue of our time.
Now, I want to stop you right there, because I think
Sure.
we want to explain something to our listeners. You're talking about prudential policy versus, I guess, the non-negotiables.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just give us the definition or the difference between them so our listeners understand what that means when we say a prudential issue.
Well, the Church has always been completely clear that there are certain things that we call intrinsically evil. That is, that they are wrong and evil under every circumstance and every occasion. There are other issues. The death penalty is one of those. Immigration is one. Discussions about economic policy, where they are subject to what are called prudential judgments. In other words, there are ways that you can have disagreements as you try to craft policies that might work. The goal, of course, is to develop policies that promote the dignity of the human person, that support the common good, all of those things. But they don't rise to the same level of significance from a moral standpoint as an issue such as abortion or euthanasia, because they are intrinsically evil, and again, they're wrong under every circumstance. So there is, I think, a clear distinction that needs to be made that certainly the bishops can and have had policy disagreements with administrations. But on the issue of abortion, the bishops are called to be absolutely clear. And we have the added wrinkle of having the second Catholic president who, while saying that he is privately opposed to abortion, nevertheless is doing everything he can to expand abortion in the United States. And this is creating what many of the bishops are calling an important moment for us to stress Eucharistic coherence. In other words, as Bishop Paprocki just wrote, that Eucharistic coherence has really taken on a heightened urgency with the election of Joe Biden. A Catholic who promotes the evils of abortion, same-sex marriage, and transgenderism.
Now, I don't know if you're a betting man or not, but looking ahead, how do you think they're going to resolve this in a couple of weeks?
Well, one of the things that has been lost in this discussion is exactly what was being planned. The bishops were planning not some sort of a statement condemning Joe Biden or Catholic politicians, but rather helping Catholics to have a deeper understanding of the importance of the Eucharist. The Eucharist, as the Second Vatican Council, called the source and summit of our life, and that you have to have that Eucharistic coherence in your life. So,
and I think we talked about this last time you were on our program, the survey that came out just before
Yes, we
Christmas.
did, exactly.
Yes. That so many Catholics don't understand that concept.
That's precisely right. And one of the aspects of that, about Eucharistic coherence, is that Catholics need to be conscious that you cannot receive Holy Communion and at the same time, with deeds and words, as Bishop Paprocki just wrote, go against the commandments, particularly when abortion, euthanasia, and other grave crimes against life and the family are being encouraged. So it's a question of reverence of the Eucharist, but it's also an important awareness that Catholics need to have of their worthiness to receive the Eucharist. And having said all of that, what I think has been lost, as I was saying, in my discussion, is that the bishops are trying to take steps toward crafting a document. So I don't think the plan was ever really to issue some sort of a statement, certainly not in light of Cardinal Adaria's letter and request. So now the question is going to be how far they can take this conversation. My guess would be that this is something that will have its preliminary discussion at the bishops' spring meeting, or in a couple of weeks in June, and then we will see further developments of this when the bishops presumably come together in person in November in Baltimore.
Right, this is a virtual meeting, as I understand, the spring one coming up.
That's correct. It's similar to the meeting that they had last November when all of it was virtual. Now, one of the arguments that some of the bishops have made in that letter, the 67 bishops in the letter asking for a postponement, is that a virtual setting like this is not necessarily the best environment for having this type of a discussion. Others would argue, well, we had a very successful meeting last November, and we were able to grapple with a lot of important topics and potentially controversial topics relating to things like Joe Biden and others, and the sex abuse crisis and things. So it is technologically possible to have this. And then, of course, the bishops have the option of what are usually referred to as their closed sessions, things that will not be broadcast or streamed in real life or virtually.
Yeah, because I believe EWTN has carried all of those live as they happened.
Yes, we have. And EWTN News will be covering all of these events very, very closely.
Oh, I imagine you will, yes.
On all of our platforms, yeah.
Getting away from the question of abortion, what else do you see coming up that the bishops are going to be working on this spring?
Well, I think the big question that we've all been living with now for almost a year and a half is COVID. the impact of the COVID pandemic on the life of the church in the United States, the economic impact that it has had, the pastoral and spiritual impact that it has had on the faithful. I think the bishops are very much aware of the problems that the pandemic has created. I think they're going to have an assessment and a discussion about how all of that went. I think the religious liberty questions have to be raised and discussed, that there were genuine threats to religious liberty in the face of how a number of local and state governments dealt with the pandemic, and I think how some of the bishops themselves dealt with the question of simply closing down masses. There's a sense I have among some bishops that they allowed it to go too far and for too long before actually standing and asking the question, why is it possible to have tattoo parlors, strip clubs, and liquor stores open as essential services, but churches were not? So there was that serious set of questions, I think, that emerged out of the pandemic that we're still grappling with from a religious freedom side.
I have one last question.
Go ahead.
The EWTN and your organization has done such a great job with surveying and getting kind of a landscape of Catholics across the United States. Have there been any recent surveys, or do you plan any new ones in the future?
Well, I can say that since the election, we've sort of been tracking how things are going, but I can say that look forward to additional polling by EWTN News in the future. I think it's important for us to always have a sense of where Catholics are and where the nation is.
I think so, too. I think it's helpful to our shepherds, anyway.
I think it is, too. Dr. Bunson, thank you again for joining us. We certainly appreciate your time and what you do for the Catholic Church and EWTN.
Well, it's a privilege to be with you. Let's keep praying for our bishops and Pope Francis, and I'm happy to be on anytime you'd like.
Thank you, and we will have you back again. Thank you very much, Dr. Matthew Bunson, Executive Editor of EWTN News, and we will be right back after these messages.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and John Leonetti in the Morning is provided by Blessman International. Blessman International partners with volunteers and donors to provide sustainable programs for children in South Africa by leading a 12-day all-inclusive experience sharing the heart of Christ with vulnerable children in South Africa. Teams are forming to do something significant in an African child's life. Learn more at blessmaninternational.org. That's blessmaninternational.org. Thank you, Blessman International, for your support of Iowa Catholic Radio.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and the Uncommon Good provided by Mercy College of Health Sciences, where you can chart your course for more.
This is Bo Bonner.
And I'm Dr. Bud Marr from the Uncommon Good.
Mercy College provides unparalleled clinical rotations, hands-on learning, accelerated education, and flexible schedules. Since 1899, Mercy College has been transforming students into healthcare professionals. Guided by Catholic values, our faculty put classroom theory into practice. Students are prepared for roles in service and leadership throughout their own careers.
Learn more at mchs.edu.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and John Leonetti in the Morning provided by Bell Construction.
Bell Construction is a roofing company. They specialize in residential re-roofs, like commercial jobs, and have the experience to meet all of your roofing needs with personal service. With Bell Construction, the owner will come to your home or place of business in person to inspect and ensure the quality of work that you deserve. They pride themselves in working with you on a personal basis and making sure you are satisfied. Bell Construction, 515-963-4494. Bell Construction.
Thank you, Big Red Q Quick Print, for underwriting the sports report. Family owned and operated since 1980, Big Red Q Quick Print is a full-service print shop ready to help you with all your printing needs with speed and accuracy. Forms, manuals, brochures, letterhead, envelopes, business cards, custom invitations, design, and bindery. Big Red Q Quick Print, located across from Merle Hay Mall. Online at bigredq-desmoines.com. Big Red Q Quick Print. We make printing easy.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Catholic Women Now provided in part by Permar Security, providing security solutions for homes and businesses since 1953. Permar Security is a Catholic-owned family business supplying security systems, access control systems, video surveillance, fire alarm systems, and video doorbells. All alarm systems are monitored out of their monitoring center located in the state of Iowa. Permar Security, 515-244-5660, permarsecurity.com.
Here's your forecast on Iowa Catholic Radio. Scattered showers and thunderstorms are possible for the afternoon with low pressure and a cold front moving through. It'll be breezy, our high around 75. Scattered showers this evening and then cloudy overnight, mid-40s. Mostly cloudy tomorrow and cooler with a high of 55. The weather is brought to you by Divine Treasures, a Catholic book and gift store serving the Des Moines community for over 25 years. I'm meteorologist Steve Hamilton on Iowa Catholic Radio.
And we're back. You're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio. And joining us right now is Denise Harle, who is Senior Counsel with the Alliance Defending Freedom, where she is also a member of their Center for Life. Denise, good morning.
Good morning.
Wanted to talk to you today about this case that you've been working on, I think Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Organization, which has to do with that new Mississippi law that is limiting abortions after 15 weeks. And I think as I read the press releases and the news stories, the Supreme Court has just agreed to hear that case.
That's right. This is a big development. It's going to be probably one of the biggest abortion cases we've seen the Supreme Court consider in a couple decades, at least. And, you know, it really calls into question the confusing jurisprudence that has developed after Roe v. Wade. It has been a moving target. It has led to a lot of death, and there is no clear legal test.
Okay, can you give us a little bit of the background of this case, where it started, where it came from, who's appealing what, and how it got to the Supreme Court?
Absolutely. So Mississippi has adopted a law that protects unborn children and their mothers from late-term abortions, and so it prohibits abortions after 15 weeks. This is in line with what most Americans support, really. Because the language of Roe v. Wade and a case that follows called Planned Parenthood v. Casey suggests that states can't restrict abortion before viability. That's what's led to litigation over this law, because 15 weeks, you know, although it is solidly into the second trimester, at this point in our science and medicine is before the viability point. Okay. And so the question... Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So the question teed up for the Supreme Court is whether states may restrict abortion before viability. And that's a very important question because there are many Americans and many states that are eager to protect life early on.
Okay, so the legal process of getting it to the Supreme Court, what happened initially and how did it get up there?
Yeah, this is a good example of what happens with a lot of pro-life laws that are passed. So Mississippi passed this law, and almost immediately it was struck down by the federal district court, the trial court. And the only thing the trial court looked at was whether the 15-week mark is before the point of viability. Okay. And that was it. And he said, oh, you obviously lose. He didn't consider all of the evidence that at that point a baby has its own brain and spinal cord, has a beating heart, it can pick up and move its arms and legs and fingers, and it can taste what its mom eats and sense pain. These are really critical things that a court should be considering. Unfortunately, then on appeal, the Fifth Circuit Federal Court of Appeals upheld that decision again, saying we're bound by Roe v. Wade. So, you know, there's really nothing we can do. Our hands are tied unless you, Supreme Court, fix this mess. And so now, thankfully, we're going to hopefully get some clarity, and we're hopeful for a good ruling from the Supreme Court.
Okay, so now the court has agreed to hear this case. It's granted your petition for certiorari. And when do you think it's going to be heard? Go ahead, start there. What are we looking like? You're obviously going through a briefing schedule right now.
That's right. So everyone can just take a deep breath and sit back. It's going to be a process. I don't think the oral arguments will be until the first half of November. The brief will be filed late summer into the early fall. Mississippi will have an opportunity to make its arguments in full again, and the other side will oppose. Mississippi will get a reply. The case will be heard, and then the Supreme Court has really almost no deadline. Now, they traditionally decide every case by the end of that term, by the last day in June. So my guess is, because it is going to be a very high-profile, potential difficult case, we'll see a decision in June of 2022.
Yeah, I think you're right there, that it'll probably come on the last day or the next to last day of the term, since everybody's going to be looking out for it. May as well keep the suspense up, right? What are you expecting? Now, we've got a conservative majority, at least a titular majority, on the Supreme Court right now. What are we looking at as far as the possibility of the court looking at that viability thing and striking it?
Yeah, so I think we have a lot of reasons for optimism. One reason is that even the less conservative Supreme Court have said that states have legitimate interest in protecting unborn life from the beginning of pregnancy, and in protecting maternal health, and in protecting integrity of the medical profession. The Supreme Court previously has also upheld pre-viability bans in the Partial Birth Abortion Ban Act. So that applied throughout pregnancy, and the Supreme Court said, you know what, yes, you can, because of the dignity of humanity, you can ban that sort of gruesome method. And so I think the Supreme Court has the tools to do what it needs to do. If we might see something incremental, because I think reading the Chief Justice, he prefers to sort of uphold stability as much as he can, and the institution itself. So I could see something moderate. But if this law is going to be upheld, which I believe it will be, I believe that's why they took the case, Roe is not going to stand intact. Something is going to happen with that viability rule, and that's a fantastic thing for protecting human life in America.
Well, we have a lot of cases and laws across the country dealing with the heartbeat, what they call heartbeat legislation, that says that bans abortions after a heartbeat can be detected. Those have all been struck down, as I'm aware of. What would a positive ruling for you and for the state of Mississippi in this particular case do to the how the courts would look at heartbeat legislation?
That's a great point. Every time one of these life-protecting laws comes up, the federal courts, even the originalists who don't believe there is anything in the Constitution that allows a right to abortion or guarantees the right to abortion, have said, our hands are tied. The Supreme Court has spoken on this. We simply can't uphold it, no matter how good and right we think it is, as a constitutional question. And so all that to say, all of these cases, all of these laws are going to be looking to the way the Supreme Court writes its opinion. And that's what's going to be so important, is the way the decision is written. Is the court going to pick a number? Is the court going to pick a number like 15 weeks? Is the court going to say from the beginning of pregnancy? That's what we don't know. And so leading up to the oral arguments on this, it's going to be very important that the court have a lot of resources in front of it in terms of fetal development, embryology, sonogram science, all the things we know now that we didn't know in 1973 when Roe v. Wade was decided.
Now, one other thing before Gina has some questions here, but one other thing before she takes over, and this is something I'm always concerned about in these cases that are going up at appeal. What does the record show thus far? In other words, the medical and the scientific expertise about viability and what it means and all of this stuff, how has that been preserved in the record for you to argue on as we get up to the Supreme Court?
The Mississippi legislature did a fantastic job, and Mississippi did a wonderful job in the federal courts below doing exactly that. So if you get a chance to read their cert petition, if you haven't already, in fact, I would even commend it to your audience. There are pages and pages on the details in the record from scientific experts about fetal medicine and the fact that the viability line has moved up and up and up, and all the things we know now that, again, weren't considered by the Supreme Court several decades ago.
Okay, very good, because I'm always a little concerned about that as we move a case forward, that we're leaving something behind and it's not going to end up in the appeals court. Gina, you had a question.
Well, I'm very hopeful for this particular case to be settled because even this week, was it this week or last week? I can't remember, but Congress brought Secretary Becerra from the Health and Human Services Secretary up to Congress to question him. And one of the things he stated verbally was there is no law banning partial birth abortion. Now, he either didn't know that or he chose not to admit that it existed. So I think this would really give some guidance to him and his department. The other thing that's now, I don't have a law background, but I'm hearing a lot of banter that this law would repeal Roe and Casey. I can't find evidence of. I know that there's parts of it that may be affected by a positive ruling in this case, but what are the points in Casey and Roe that would be affected by an affirmative ruling by the Supreme Court on this case?
Denise?
Yeah, well, don't get me started on Secretary Becerra, who I think is
no,
one of the worst
I bit my tongue while she mentioned his name too.
But you understand my point.
Right,
he needs to know that. I mean, I don't know how clearly a secretary needs to understand the laws that he's having to rule on.
Yeah,
absolutely, and no healthcare background at all from him, other than promoting the abortion industry. But on your second question, I think you ask a very legally astute question, and the answer is a little bit, it depends on, again, the way the court writes its opinion. The Mississippi law could absolutely be upheld and say, states, you can restrict late-term abortion. You can protect the unborn and moms after a certain point in pregnancy. And yet, the fundamental idea that there is some right to abortion secretly lurking in words that aren't in the Constitution could remain for now. That would be one potential outcome. So, a very sweeping outcome, which I think we have reason to think might not happen. It would be completely saying there's no right to abortion in the Constitution. Constitution doesn't say anything one way or the other. But actually, all that would do is kick it back to the states, and states can have abortions for all 9 months of pregnancy if they want, and other states can completely protect life.
Mm-hmm.
Any of those outcomes are possible.
And our president has talked about codifying Roe, to avoid this whole decision. Would that have any bearing on an outcome in this case?
I don't think it'll have a bearing on the case, in part because it's such nonsensical puffery. I mean, we can't do that without Congress, and there's no way he has 60 votes in Congress to do that. The majority of Americans don't want Roe codified. So I think that's him pandering to his base. He hasn't taken any action on that front, and I'm quite satisfied that won't happen.
As I look at the history of the court, when the court overrules an earlier precedent, they very often, at least most of the time that I'm aware of, don't just overrule the precedent before. They chip away at it. And it's the exceptions then that becomes the new rule. So do you see this as one of those cases that could really start that chipping away at Roe versus Wade?
I do. And I think it's almost the perfect case in the sense that it's not a total ban on abortion, but it has to call into question the viability rule. And the viability rule is what we've been operating under for 50 years now. And so obviously 15 weeks is before viability. The viability rule can't stand, but that doesn't mean the line's going to move all the way up so that Roe no longer exists. I think chipping away, though, is a fantastic step. And because it is such a contentious issue in America, I can see Chief Justice Roberts wanting to do something incremental, and probably Justice Kavanaugh as well is more in a moderate type position on this. So I think your instincts are right.
Okay. So we're looking now we're in the briefing stage, and we're looking at maybe oral argument sometime in November.
Yes, hopefully in person. It would be really exciting to see the court get back to its normal operations because there's something so just wonderful about that institution. If you've ever had the chance to see it or take a tour, it's
no, they
like
won't
nothing
allow.
else.
They won't allow me in. So.
Yes, so and then we'll have a long wait after that. But in the meantime, I think believers, people of faith, Christians, you need to be speaking about this and, and speaking about the sanctity of life, and really take this opportunity to explain and educate ourselves on why late-term abortion is so
horrific,
destructive, horrific,
brutal,
in a way that's winsome and graceful, that other people can understand how completely reasonable and common sense it is to limit abortion after 4 months into pregnancy.
Yeah. If we want to find out more about this case and about what you are doing, how do we do that? Website, whatever?
Yes. Your listeners can go to adflegal.org. That stands for Alliance Defending Freedom. adflegal.org. There you can read about this and all of the other cases we're participating in. You can sign up for our newsletter to get sort of the highlights on the breaking cases. We work hard on life, family, marriage, religious liberty, and free speech. And we would love for your your listeners to follow along and join us, link arms in this battle.
And as I usually mention, ADF operates on a pro bono basis. So if somebody is on that website and they have some spare change, they can make a tax-deductible donation.
That's right. We don't charge any of our clients, and it's just our honor and privilege to have ministry friends who allow us to keep our doors open and keep the doors open for the gospel.
Well, we want to thank you very much for joining us today, Denise Harle, who is a senior counsel with ADF. We appreciate your time, and God bless you in your work. We hope you're successful. We'll keep in touch.
Thank you. Shout out to my family in Hancock County.
Oh, all right. Very good. All right. Thank
yes,
you.
we do, Denise. Good job.
Good job.
Have a great day.
Thank
you.
You. And we will be right back after these messages. You're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and John Leonetti in the Morning provided by Bell Construction.
Bell Construction is a roofing company. They specialize in residential re-roofs, like commercial jobs, and have the experience to meet all of your roofing needs with personal service. With Bell Construction, the owner will come to your home or place of business in person to inspect and ensure the quality of work that you deserve. They pride themselves in working with you on a personal basis and making sure you are satisfied. Bell Construction, 515-963-4494. Bell Construction.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Dowling Catholic Sports is provided in part by Ashworth Vision Clinic. With 2 licensed optometrists, Barbara Sheets, a Dowling graduate, and Dr. Craig Harper, the Ashworth Vision Clinic team provides complete eye exams, contact lenses, glasses, glaucoma testing, and pre- and post-operative care. Ashworth Vision Clinic is located at 60th and Ashworth in West Des Moines. 515-440-4610 or online, ashworthvision.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Catholic Women Now provided in part by Permar Security, providing security solutions for homes and businesses since 1953. Permar Security is a Catholic-owned family business supplying security systems, access control systems, video surveillance, fire alarm systems, and video doorbells. All alarm systems are monitored out of their monitoring center located in the state of Iowa. Permar Security, 515-244-5660, permarsecurity.com.
Thank you, Dental Associates, for underwriting Dowling Catholic Sports 365. With over 40 years' experience, Dental Associates is a group dental practice with the mission of promoting optimum health and well-being to all patients, providing preventative, restorative, and cosmetic dentistry for the entire family. Message underwritten by Dr. Kenton Gleichman, Dr. Steve Karbaka, and Dr. Ben Nagel. Dental Associates, addressing your smile, needs, and dreams. Online at DesMoines-DentalAssociates.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and John Leonetti in the Morning is provided by Five Sons Naturescapes. Five Sons Naturescapes is a Catholic veteran-owned family company providing premium outdoor landscaping, clean up and restore outdoor living space with retaining walls, privacy fencing, pergolas, paver sidewalks, and patios. Issues with soil settling and water around the foundation and yard? Five Sons Naturescapes can grade and install drainage tile to help. Five Sons Naturescapes online at fivesonsnaturescapes.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio provided by Savage Power. Join us on Thursday, June 3rd for our 10th annual gala benefiting Intervisions Healthcare. We're thrilled to welcome Benjamin Watson, former NFL tight end and Super Bowl champ, who has an inspiring message about the importance of being the one. Ben, along with his wife and 7 children, are great supporters of pregnancy clinics like Intervisions. As a medical nonprofit, all proceeds from the gala support our life-affirming services. We promise it'll be an evening that you'll long remember. For more information, visit ivhcare.org, and thanks for supporting the women and babies of Intervisions Healthcare.
And welcome back. You listen to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio. And I ought to mention here that you can stay connected to Iowa Catholic Radio through our newsletter, which you can sign up for at iowacatholicradio.com. Well, another showdown.
Yes, our shows, Deacon Mike, send me home with quite a bit of homework.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Matthew Bunson.
You come here with a lot of homework.
I've done my homework before I come here. I try to anyway. And then, Dr. Bunson helped us understand what's coming up with the bishops. I thought I knew what was going on there, and really it's stay tuned and keep your eye on the ball and listen and learn as we get to the spring meeting of the bishops, and then following the meeting, because I imagine they'll, following the meeting, issue some sort of statement for all of us to understand the results of their consensus.
Yeah, my guess is that there'll probably be some private conferencing going on, and they will come up with some type of a statement. I don't anticipate being able to watch their debate as you have in past years, been able to turn on EWTN and you can see the debate going on and listen to what the bishops are saying. But because it is being done online, it's going to be much more difficult to do that in the first place. I think some of those bishops have the correct idea that this is a difficult form to handle this in, where we're all spread. How many bishops are there in the United States? A couple hundred, maybe 300 of them that are all now, online, and
exactly.
And that makes it very difficult.
Those conferences, I'm sure there's a lot of side discussions amongst members, and maybe now they text each other in a group text during the meetings. Who knows?
I remember conventions and things that I've gone to, there's a lot of discussion in the bar after hours that makes its way into committee work and things like that. It's all those informal meetings that where people are nose to nose with one another and they're looking at one another. And they're discussing things very frankly, maybe things that they wouldn't necessarily say on the floor of the assembly. But I can tell you, I'm not going to stand up and say this in front of all the other bishops. But let's get some feedback on this.
Right.
And so I think we lose that with them not meeting together.
Sure.
Okay. And so I would anticipate that there would be some type of statement that they would issue about the Eucharist and about its prominent place in the church and what it means to receive the Eucharist. That obviously is going to fly over the heads of a lot of the people that may be aimed at. But I think the election of Joe Biden, who claims to be a devout Catholic, certainly has put the onus back on the bishops to say something. And I think they may take it incrementally. We've been talking about chipping away at things, with the last guest, with Denise. I think they may just start to chip away a little bit. And again, I think Dr. Bunson may be right. You may have to wait till the fall assembly before we get any real movement there or any strong statement like a lot of pro-lifers would like to hear.
Well, true. And I think the public portion of the conference on the reverence of the Eucharist will be very educational for all Catholics.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to hearing what they share with us in our own lives and how important it is to be as holy as possible in all that we do every day.
It's a tough time to be a bishop these days, especially in the United States right now with Joe Biden as president. It's always been a tough time to be a bishop, I guess, but now there's more focus on a lot of things, and you see a lot of arguments going back and forth between the bishops, and sometimes they're priests. And it's one of these.
We talk
things
about the slow boil of the frog in the water
that's right.
analogy, and I think the church has kind of just been thrown in the water without knowing that they were complicit with some of the the descriptions. I think there's a lot of Catholics who, like Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi, and we talked at the break about Secretary Becerra, that believe if they attend church on Sunday and do treat people nicely, that's
all you need.
The religiosity of it is not necessary, and that's a very poor example for Catholics and
Certainly
their catechization.
Yes.
So I'm glad that the bishops need to take that back from the public eye and say this is.
I think Archbishop Gomez
Catholicism
is trying to tug a little bit to get that back in the bishop's court.
He sounds like one of the good guys, really.
Yeah.
So that's good.
All right, and I also think that Denise made some good points when she talked about the viability issue. You know, I had seen before we went on the air with her some questions about, you know, is this really the right thing to do? This is not necessarily a good law. You know, doesn't really protect that many. But I understand the point now on viability. Once you can punch that viability thing, once you can poke a hole through that, then you can legislate a lot more against abortion and against the expansion of abortion.
Well, exactly. And I'm glad she made the point that 50 years ago it was difficult to, the science wasn't there. And the Supreme Court didn't have the availability of the ultrasound and the life-affirming science of the baby, whether it's in the womb or outside of the womb, that they're very much human.
Right, and I'm glad they loaded their case up with all that scientific evidence so that it can it's part of the record now that goes before the Supreme Court.
This will be a good case to follow, and I want to encourage our listeners to be patient, and in this time between the ruling in the next year, it would be a great time to pray for the Supreme Court justices, for the attorneys, and for life.
Hit your beads.
In the rosary, our Mother
right.
Mary is very involved in this issue.
Right. All right. Well, it's just about time for us to go. So let's close with our prayer to St. Michael, and especially after listening to Zachary King last week.
Often as you can say this prayer,
Michael
use
is
it.
Very important. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle, be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray, and do thou, Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruin of souls. Amen.
Amen.
All right, for Gina and myself, thank you for listening. Join us again next week for another edition of Faith on Trial, and until then, have a blessed and peaceful week.
Our freedom of conscience and religion is being challenged by laws and regulations imposed by secular society. Faith on Trial, with Defender of the Faith, Deacon Mike Mano. Faith on Trial, Thursdays at 10 a.m. on Iowa Catholic Radio, iowacatholicradio.com, and the Iowa Catholic Radio app.
Support for Faith on Trial and Iowa Catholic Radio provided in part by Imogene Ingredients.